Red emergency lights pulsed through the corridors of the Astra's Grace as Captain Alara Joe sprinted past fallen crew members. The sickly sweet stench of the Void Plague's final phase filled the recycled air. A cocktail of decay and something else, something alien. Behind her, the groans of the infected echoed off the metal walls. Ahead, the medbay doors glowed like salvation. Lockdown Protocol Alpha 9 in effect. The ship's AI announced, its feminine voice eerily calm amidst chaos. Quarantine breach in sectors 3 through 7. All personnel report to emergency stations. Alara slammed her palm against the biometric scanner. The doors hissed open, revealing the clinical white interior of the medbay, now stained with spatters of blackened blood. In the center of the room, Dr. Rian Tuvok hunched over a figure draped in a tattered cloak. The doctor's normally immaculate lab coat was smeared with the telltale iridescent residue of void infection. "Captain," Tuvok acknowledged without looking up, his voice ragged from exhaustion. "I've administered the last batch of the serum." Alara approached cautiously, hand hovering over her sidearm. "Status: 38 crew lost in the last 12 hours. 23 more showing advanced symptoms." Tuvok finally straightened, revealing deep shadows beneath his eyes. "And then there's our mysterious guest." The cloaked figure on the examination table shifted. A gaunt face emerged from beneath the hood, skin pale as starlight, eyes unnaturally bright, almost luminescent. The man's veins pulsed with faint blue light beneath translucent skin. "Who is he? How did he get aboard?" Alara demanded. "Shuttle Bay 3. Unauthorized docking during the meteor shower when our sensors were compromised," Tuvok explained. "Security found him wandering the cargo hold. He should be dead." "Alara, his blood shows void plague markers that would kill a normal human in hours." The stranger's cracked lips parted in what might have been a smile. "You've only tasted the mild strains," he whispered, his voice like gravel sliding through silk. A shudder ran down Alara's spine. What does that mean? But before the man could answer, alarms blared. The ship lurched violently, throwing medical equipment to the floor. When Alara regained her footing, the stranger was gone, the ventilation grate above his examination table swinging open. "Security to medbay," she shouted into her comm. "Intruder in the ventilation system." Tuvok was already analyzing a blood sample, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. "Captain, you need to see this. His cells aren't fighting the infection. They're cooperating it." Alara stared at the display where red blood cells pulsed with the same eerie blue light as the stranger's veins. "How is that possible?" "I don't know," Tuvok admitted. "But if he's right about mild strains, then everything we know about the Void Plague might be wrong." Through the viewport beyond Tuvok's shoulder, Alara could see the vast emptiness of space, punctuated by distant stars and the faint outline of a quarantine blockade. Somewhere out there, entire colonies had already fallen to the plague that now threatened her ship. And somehow, one man had survived it all. The Void Plague had emerged 3 years earlier during deep space mining operations near the phenomenon known as the Null Sphere, a perfect darkness at the edge of charted space that absorbed all light, all signals, all matter that ventured too close. The Helix Corporation's drilling platforms had pierced something at the sphere's outer membrane, releasing microscopic particles that merged with standard nanotech worker protections. The first symptoms appeared subtle. Heightened sensory perception, increased stamina, vivid dreams. By the time the miners realized something was wrong, half the crew had progressed to stage 2, bioluminescent veining, unpredictable psychosis, and an insatiable hunger. The final stage turned humans into shambling carriers, their bodies corrupted vessels spreading spores with every exhalation. Quarantine protocols failed. Emergency evacuations carried the plague to orbital stations, then colonies, then core worlds. Within 6 months, 17 settlements had been abandoned, their populations either dead or transformed beyond recognition. Now, the remaining human worlds existed under perpetual blockade. Starships patrolled dead zones, shooting down any vessel that attempted to breach containment without proper clearance. Gene harvest clinics had sprung up in every major port, offering weekly scanning and immunotherapy. The wealthy sealed themselves in bioadaptive suits that monitored and purified every molecule that touched their skin. And in the shadows of society, healing cults had emerged, worshipping the void's gifts and seeking voluntary infection, believing that transformation was the next step in human evolution. Captain Alara Jo had lost her sister May to the early outbreak on Vega Station. As an exobiologist, Alara had been consulted on containment, but arrived too late to save her only family. She watched through quarantine glass as May deteriorated, her brilliant mind fracturing until she no longer recognized her own sister. After May's death, Alara abandoned research for command, determined to fight the plague through action rather than theory. The Astra's Grace was her fourth quarantine vessel, a converted luxury cruiser now serving as both hospital ship and mobile laboratory. Its mission, to extract survivors from compromised colonies and study their resistance factors while transporting them to secure facilities. Alara's strength lay in her unflinching resolve. Where other captains had broken under the psychological strain of watching crew after crew succumb to infection, she maintained a steel-like composure. Her empathy for the infected never clouded her judgment, a quality that inspired both loyalty and unease among those who served under her. Yet beneath her calm exterior, Alara fought a constant battle against emotional detachment. Each time she ordered an infected crew member into isolation. Each time she executed quarantine protocols that condemned the few to save the many. She felt another piece of her humanity slipping away. She feared becoming as cold and empty as the void itself. Dr. Rian Tuvok had once been the Galactic Medical Corps' most promising pathologist. His early research into viral mutation had saved millions during the Centauri flu pandemic. But when the void plague emerged, Tuvok's desperate search for a cure led him down ethically questionable paths. He began experimenting on late-stage infected without consent, believing the ends justified his means. The Corps expelled him after discovering his unauthorized trials. But by then, Tuvok had compiled more data on plague variants than anyone in known space. His brilliant mind mapped mutations that others couldn't even detect, and his morally flexible approach to medicine made him invaluable in crisis, if not entirely trustworthy. Alara had recruited him personally, recognizing that conventional ethics might need to bend if humanity was to survive. Still, she watched him carefully, especially around vulnerable patients. Tuvok carried his own burden of guilt. The deaths caused by his early, failed treatments haunted his dreams. He worked relentlessly, sleeping only when his body collapsed from exhaustion, as though each cure he developed might balance the scales of his conscience. And now, there was the Whisperer, the gaunt survivor whose cryptic warning had sent chills through the ship. Rumors already circulated among the crew that he might be Patient Zero, the mythical first human infected when the null sphere was breached. Others whispered that he was something else entirely, neither fully human nor completely transformed, but existing in a terrifying equilibrium with the plague itself. Whatever his origins, his words echoed in Alara's mind as she assembled an investigation team. "You've only tasted the mild strains." The shuttle was cold-docked in Bay 3. Lieutenant Marisol Diaz reported, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic reconstruction, as Alara's second-in-command. Marisol managed the ship's security with meticulous attention to detail. No registration beacon, no distress signal, as if it materialized from nowhere. Alara, Tuvok, and a 3-person security team stood in the deserted shuttle bay, examining the small craft that had delivered their mysterious visitor. From the outside, it appeared to be a standard short-range transport, the kind used for ferrying personnel between ships in the same fleet. But inside... "Captain, "You need to see this," called Ensign Park from within the shuttle. Elara stepped through the airlock and froze. The shuttle's interior had been converted into a mobile laboratory. Preservation tubes lined the walls, each containing what appeared to be human organs in various stages of transformation. Some glowed with the characteristic blue luminescence of void infection. Others had mutated beyond recognition, sprouting tendrils or crystalline structures. Most disturbing were the meticulous notes projected above each specimen, detailed analyses of mutation rates, genetic drift, and something labeled transcendence thresholds. "He's been collecting samples," Tuvok observed, examining a container of viscous black fluid. "And not just any samples, these are from different outbreaks across at least 6 systems." "A plague tourist?" Marisol suggested, her hand resting on her weapon. "No," Tuvok shook his head. "A researcher. Look at the sophistication of these preservation techniques, the analytical depth of these notes. This isn't curiosity or even fanaticism. This is methodology." Elara accessed the shuttle's navigation system, bypassing security protocols with her captain's override. "Last coordinates. Celestine Station." She frowned. "That's impossible. Celestine was completely overrun 8 months ago. Total population loss." "Not total, apparently," Tuvok murmured, holding up a black market biokit. "He was harvesting specimens there. Recently, a sudden crash from the cargo hold interrupted them. Weapons drawn, they rushed toward the sound, finding a crewman convulsing on the floor beside an open container. Black fluid identical to what Tuvok had just examined seeped across the deck plating. "Containment breach," Elara shouted. "Med team to cargo bay. Full hazard protocols." The crewman's veins had already begun to glow, the infection spreading visibly beneath his skin. His eyes rolled back, showing only whites as his spine arched at an impossible angle. "It's accelerated," Tuvok said, scanning the fallen man with a handheld diagnostic tool. "Normal progression takes days. This is happening in minutes." "Can you stabilize him?" Elara asked, already knowing the answer. Tuvok met her gaze solemnly. "Not with any treatment we currently possess." The ship's AI announced another lockdown as the contamination spread through the ventilation system. Within hours, 12 more crew members showed symptoms. By the following day, that number had tripled. In the ship's conference room, tension crackled like static electricity as Elara faced her senior staff. "The standard quarantine protocols aren't working," she stated flatly. "This strain moves too quickly, adapts too efficiently. At current progression rates, we'll lose the entire ship within 72 hours. The Whisperer's blood shows remarkable properties," Tuvok interjected, projecting cellular scans onto the room's main display. "His antibodies don't fight the infection, they incorporate it, using its own mechanisms to achieve a kind of symbiosis." "You're suggesting we use his blood to create a treatment?" Elara asked. "I'm suggesting we might need to consider experimental approaches," Tuvok clarified. "If we could extract the relevant compounds from his blood and synthesize them." "Absolutely not," Chief Medical Officer Valencia interrupted. "We have no idea what side effects such a treatment might have. We could be trading one form of the plague for another. We need to find him first," Marisol pointed out. "He's been in the ventilation system for almost 30 hours. How is he surviving in there?" "Perhaps he doesn't need the same environment we do anymore," Tuvok suggested. The discussion continued in circles until Elara made her decision. "We'll split into search teams to locate the Whisperer, Dr. Tuvok. Continue analyzing his blood samples, but no human testing without my explicit authorization. Is that clear?" Tuvok nodded, but something in his expression made Elara uneasy. Her instincts proved correct. 3 days later, as the situation aboard the Astra's Grace deteriorated further, Elara discovered that Tuvok had established a secret laboratory in an unused storage compartment. Inside, 3 crew members, all volunteers, were strapped to medical beds. intravenous lines feeding them a bluish serum derived from the Whisperer's blood. "What have you done?" Alara demanded, her voice deadly quiet. "What was necessary?" Tuvok replied without remorse. "The infection rate has exceeded our containment capabilities. These volunteers were already showing early symptoms. I offered them a chance. Without authorization, without proper testing, there was no time for bureaucracy. Captain, look at their readings." Alara glanced at the monitors. Incredibly, the progression of the plague had halted in all 3 subjects. Their vital signs were stabilizing. "It's working," she admitted reluctantly. "For now," Tuvok cautioned. "But I need more of his blood to synthesize an effective treatment for the entire crew. We need to find him." Alara's moral compass wavered. The part of her that had watched her sister die screamed that any means were justified if they saved lives. The captain in her recoiled at the ethical violation, the dangerous precedent. Before she could respond, the ship's lighting failed completely, plunging them into darkness before emergency systems activated the dim red backup illumination. "Captain to bridge," she called into her comm. "Report!" Static answered her. Then, faintly, "Captain, sabotage. Cargo hold. New outbreak." Rushing to the cargo hold, Alara and Tuvok discovered a nightmare scenario. A faction of desperate crew members, led by the ship's chaplain, had deliberately released a stronger strain of the plague, believing that forcing Alara's hand would accelerate the development of Tuvok's experimental treatment. The result was catastrophic. 27 crew members lay dead or dying, their bodies transforming more rapidly and completely than any previous infection. The ship's life support systems were failing as the plague's spores infiltrated critical components. "They thought they were saving everyone," Marisol explained, her voice hollow as she surveyed the carnage. "The chaplain convinced them that desperate times required desperate measures." "Where is the chaplain now?" Alara asked. "Dead. One of the first to turn." As they spoke, Marisol swayed slightly, catching herself against a bulkhead. Alara noticed with horror the faint blue lines beginning to trace patterns beneath her second-in-command's skin. "Marisol, your arm." The lieutenant looked down, her expression shifting from shock to a strange serenity. "I didn't want to say anything. Thought I could fight it off." "We need to get you to medical," Alara insisted, reaching for her friend. Marisol stepped back, drawing her weapon. "No. I've seen what happens in medical. I've seen what Tuvok does to the late-stage cases." "Lieutenant, you're not thinking clearly," Alara said, slowly raising her hands. "The infection affects cognitive function. Let us help you." "Help?" Marisol laughed, a sound with too many harmonics to be fully human. "Like you helped your sister?" The words struck Alara like a physical blow. "How do you know about May?" "He told me," Marisol whispered, her eyes beginning to glow. "The Whisperer. He shows me things in my dreams now. The truth about the Void, what we could become if we stopped fighting it." "Marisol, please." But the lieutenant was already moving, faster than human reflexes should allow, diving into an open ventilation shaft before security could react. "The bridge," Alara realized with dawning horror. "She has command codes. She could override our quarantine protocols." By the time they reached the bridge, it was too late. Marisol had barricaded herself in the Environmental Control Center and vented sections of the ship to the infected areas, creating a direct passage between the cargo hold and the ventilation network that spanned the entire vessel. For the next 12 hours, chaos reigned. Infected crew members swarmed through previously secure areas. The medical bay was overrun, forcing Tuvok and his remaining staff to retreat to the auxiliary research lab. Life support functioned at minimal capacity, and the ship's AI reported structural integrity failing in multiple sections. In the midst of this collapse, Alara received a message on her personal comm unit, a set of coordinates leading to the ship's biodome. a vast enclosed garden originally designed to provide passengers with a pleasant recreation area. Now it stood abandoned, its atmospheric controls long since repurposed for critical systems. "It's a trap," Tuvok warned when she told him of the message. "Of course it is," Alara agreed. "But it's also our only lead to the Whisperer, and we need him if your treatment has any chance of saving what's left of the crew." "I'm coming with you." She shook her head. "No. Continue synthesizing the serum from the samples we have. If I don't return in 3 hours, evacuate whoever remains to the emergency shuttles and implement sterilization protocol. That's a death sentence for anyone left behind." Tuvok protested. "Better than carrying this strain to another population," Alara said grimly. "Promise me, Rian." After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. 3 hours. Armed with only a pulse pistol and a portable atmospheric shield, Alara made her way through the labyrinthine ventilation system toward the biodome. The normal ship sounds had been replaced by an unsettling chorus of whispers and moans echoing through the metal passages. Twice she encountered transformed crew members, their bodies twisted into new configurations, luminous eyes tracking her movements with predatory intelligence. When she finally reached the biodome, she discovered it had been transformed. What had once been a carefully maintained garden now resembled an alien jungle. Plants had grown to impossible sizes, their structures altered to incorporate the same bioluminescent properties as infected humans. Vines pulsed with visible fluid circulation, and flowers emitted spores that drifted like glowing snowflakes through the humid air. In the center of this transformed ecosystem stood the Whisperer, his cloak discarded to reveal a body that defied easy categorization. He retained a basically human shape, but his skin had the translucent quality of deep-sea creatures, revealing a network of glowing circulatory pathways beneath. Where his eyes should have been, twin points of blue-white light emanated from recessed sockets. "Captain Joe," he greeted her, his voice smoother now, as if he had acclimated to speaking again after long silence. "You've come seeking answers." Alara kept her weapon trained on him. "Who are you? What have you done to my ship?" "I've done nothing. Your crew unleashed the catalyst themselves. I merely observed. You brought the stronger strain aboard. You're responsible for every death." The Whisperer tilted his head. "Am I? Was it not your Dr. Tuvok who began experimenting on your crew? Was it not your chaplain who broke the containment seals? Humans are so eager to assign blame elsewhere when the capacity for self-destruction lies within." "What do you want?" Alara demanded. "To show you the truth." He gestured around at the transformed biodome. "This is not destruction, Captain. This is transcendence." "You call this transcendence?" "My crew dying in agony, transforming into something beyond human limitations." He completed. "The void plague, as you call it, is not a disease. It's an evolutionary catalyst." "Evolution doesn't happen overnight, doesn't it? When environmental pressures become extreme enough, adaptation must accelerate or extinction follows." The Whisperer approached slowly. "The universe is changing. Captain, the null sphere is only the first breach between realities. Others will follow. Conventional human biology cannot survive what's coming. So instead we should all become like you?" Alara kept her distance, circling to maintain separation. "What exactly are you?" "I am many," he replied cryptically. "The first miners who breached the sphere, the scientists who studied their remains, the colonists who sought refuge on Celestine Station, all transformed, all merged, all evolved." Alara felt cold dread seeping into her bones. "You're a composite being. A collective," he corrected. "Separate consciousnesses united by the catalyst, preserving the best of humanity while transcending its physical limitations. And the price? The suffering, the deaths, the loss of individual identity? Necessary transitions. the Whisperer dismissed. The caterpillar liquefies within the chrysalis before becoming a butterfly. Old structures must dissolve before new ones can emerge. That's a convenient philosophy when you're not the one dissolving, Alara countered. For the first time, the Whisperer. You think I did not suffer? That we did not experience the agony of transformation? We felt every cell in our bodies die and regenerate. We felt our minds shatter and reconfigure, but we emerged. As what, exactly? Not human anymore. As the next iteration of humanity, he insisted. Capable of surviving in environments that would kill unmodified humans. Able to communicate across vast distances through quantum entanglement rather than crude radio waves. Possessing lifespans measured in centuries rather than decades. At the cost of your soul, Alara said softly. The Whisperer laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. How typical. When faced with transformation, retreat to mysticism, the soul isn't lost. Captain, it's expanded. I carry within me the experiences, the memories, the essence of everyone who joined our collective. And those who didn't want to join? Those who fought against infection. Their resistance was based on fear, not reason. Given time, they would understand. Or they would die, maintaining their humanity until the end. The Whisperer studied her with his luminous eyes. Like your sister? May fought so hard, didn't she? Refused sedation even when the pain became unbearable. Insisted on experiencing every moment of her humanity, even as it slipped away. Rage flared in Alara's chest. Don't you dare speak her name! I honor her memory by offering you what she never had. A choice. He extended a hand, revealing a small vial of swirling blue-black liquid. This is the true strain. Purified, stabilized. Not the chaotic variants your ship currently battles. With this, transformation becomes direction rather than destruction. Alara's comm unit crackled to life. Captain, we have a breakthrough, Tuvok's voice, tense with excitement. The serum works, but only temporarily. The plague adapts within hours. I need more time, she replied. Eyes fixed on the Whisperer. There is no more time, Tuvok insisted. Life support is failing shipwide. We need a permanent solution now. The Whisperer's smile was knowing. He seeks what I already possess. The question is whether you're brave enough to accept it. Alara's finger tightened on her weapon's trigger. I could kill you now. Take your true strain by force. You could try, he acknowledged. But would you understand how to use it? The catalyst responds to intent. Captain, in untrained hands, it becomes merely another variant of chaos. Before Alara could respond, the biodome doors burst open. Tuvok stood there, breathing heavily, his lab coat torn and stained. I followed your signal, he explained, eyes widening as he took in the transformed environment and the Whisperer's inhuman appearance. Is that the source? Alara confirmed. He claims to have a stabilized strain. Tuvok approached cautiously, his scientific curiosity overriding caution. A stable symbiosis rather than a parasitic relationship? The theoretical implications are enormous. The practical implications are extinction if we resist, or transformation if we embrace it. Alara translated grimly. Show me, Tuvok demanded of the Whisperer, his professional demeanor reasserting itself. The Whisperer handed him the vial. The culmination of 3 years' evolution, the bridge between what humanity was and what it must become. Tuvok examined the liquid, his scanner providing an analysis on his handheld device. Extraordinary. The molecular structure reconfigures itself in real time, adapting to the observer's bioelectric field. It recognizes potential, the Whisperer explained, and responds accordingly. Rian, step away from him, Alara ordered, sensing the dangerous fascination in the doctor's expression. But Tuvok was already lost in scientific rapture. The applications go beyond medicine. This could revolutionize everything from space travel to neural interfacing. Imagine consciousness freed from biological constraints, able to interface directly with technology, with other minds. Exactly, the Whisperer encouraged. You understand. I understand that you're manipulating him, Alara cut in, appealing to his scientific ambition just as you appeal to Marisol's loyalty to the crew. I merely reveal what already exists within, the Whisperer countered. The desire for transcendence is universal, though it wears different masks. Don't listen to him. Rian, we need to contain this. Study it under controlled conditions. There is no more time for cautious study, Tuvok argued, his expression hardening. You've seen what's happening to the ship, to the crew. Conventional approaches have failed. We need to take a leap. Before Alara could stop him, Tuvok had loaded the vial's contents into an injector and pressed it against his own neck. No, she shouted, lunging forward. Too late. The blue-black liquid disappeared into Tuvok's bloodstream. He staggered, dropping to his knees as the transformation began immediately. Blue light traced patterns beneath his skin, following his circulatory system before branching into more complex, fractal designs. What have you done? Alara demanded of the Whisperer, aiming her weapon at his head. Given him what he truly wanted, came the calm reply. Watch. Tuvok convulsed once, twice, then grew still. When he raised his head, his eyes glowed with the same inner light as the Whisperer's, but retained their original shape and color. When he spoke, his voice resonated with new harmonics. It's remarkable, he breathed. I can feel it integrating with my cellular structure, rewriting damaged DNA, optimizing neural pathways. Rian, Alara approached cautiously. Are you still you? More myself than I've ever been, he assured her. The noise is gone, Alara. The guilt, the doubt, the fear, all quiet now. I can think with perfect clarity. A successful integration, the Whisperer observed. Your mind was already prepared. Dr. Tuvok, your scientific understanding provided the framework necessary for directed transformation. Tuvok stood, examining his changed hands with fascination. I can synthesize this, create a controlled version of the catalyst that allows for partial transformation, enough to cure the current outbreak without forcing complete metamorphosis on those who aren't ready. Is that possible? Alara asked, hope warring with suspicion. The catalyst is infinitely adaptable, the Whisperer confirmed. It can be calibrated to individual tolerance levels. Tuvok was already moving toward the door. I need to get to my lab. With what I understand now, I can stabilize the crew within hours. Go, Alara ordered. I'll deal with our guest. After Tuvok departed, she turned back to the Whisperer. If this is a trick, if you've turned my chief medical officer into a weapon, I will find a way to destroy you, no matter what you've become. Your lack of vision is disappointing. Captain, he sighed, but predictable. Leaders are selected for their adherence to existing paradigms, not their ability to transcend them. Some paradigms exist for good reason. Individual autonomy, human dignity, the right to choose one's own fate. Noble concepts for a species at equilibrium. The Whisperer conceded. But humanity is no longer at equilibrium. The universe has changed. Those who cannot adapt will perish. Or perhaps there's a middle path, Alara suggested. Adaptation without surrender, change without dissolution. A compromise? The Whisperer seemed amused. Perhaps. Time will tell if such half measures suffice. Over the next 12 hours, Tuvok's transformation continued, but not toward the inhuman state the Whisperer embodied. Instead, he stabilized at what he called optimal symbiosis, physically human in appearance save for subtle bioluminescence visible only in darkness, but mentally enhanced in ways that defied conventional neuroscience. Working with inhuman speed and precision, he synthesized a treatment from his own transformed blood, calibrating it to halt the plague's destructive progression while allowing beneficial adaptations. Systems throughout the ship began to stabilize as treated crew members recovered, their bodies incorporating aspects of the void plague without being consumed by it. Yet Tuvok himself continued to change in more subtle ways. His genome was gradually rewriting itself into something new, neither fully human nor completely transcended like the Whisperer, but a third state that represented an evolutionary bridge. The ship's operational capacity has returned to 68%, he reported to Alara in her ready room. Life support is fully restored, and hull integrity has stabilized. And the crew? She asked, studying him carefully. 43 survivors, all responding to treatment. They'll retain some adaptations, enhanced cellular regeneration, improved oxygen efficiency, resistance to radiation, but their basic human physiology and psychology remain intact. And you, Rian? What are you becoming? He met her gaze steadily, his eyes now containing subtle fractal patterns within the iris. Something necessary. A translator between human and post-human states. The catalyst reorganizes neural architecture to process information differently. I can perceive patterns invisible to unmodified humans, interface directly with ship systems, communicate with both you and the Whisperer. Can you be trusted? The blunt question hung between them. More than before, he answered without hesitation. My perspective has expanded, but my core values remain. I still serve life, knowledge, and the well-being of this crew. And when we reach the blockade, when Galactic Command demands a full accounting of what happened here. Tuvok considered this. They'll want the catalyst, both to study and to weaponize. The same with the serum. Either could shift the balance of power throughout known space. Exactly my concern. Alara stood, pacing the small confines of her office, which is why I've decided to transmit the medical data, the treatment protocols, the biosignatures, everything needed to stabilize current plague victims, but encrypt the actual formula. No one gets the catalyst until we understand it fully. The Whisperer won't approve. The Whisperer isn't the captain of this vessel, Alara said firmly. And while I'm grateful for the knowledge that saved my crew, I don't trust his agenda. Wise, Tuvok agreed. He believes forced evolution is humanity's only path forward. I'm no longer certain that's true. Alara paused by the viewport, watching the stars drift past. Where is he now? In the biodome. He's transformed it into something remarkable, a self-sustaining ecosystem that incorporates both Earth origin and novel biological components. I believe he's preparing to leave when we reach the next port. To spread his true strain elsewhere? Perhaps. Or perhaps to find others like himself. He implied there were more collectives forming throughout the quarantine zones. Alara felt a chill at the thought of multiple composite beings like the Whisperer, each carrying the consciousnesses of dozens or hundreds of former humans. Was this truly humanity's future, dissolution into collective entities that transcended individual limitations at the cost of individual identity? 3 days later, as the Astra's Grace approached the blockade surrounding Arcturus Station, Alara made her final decision. She transmitted the treatment data to Galactic Command, but embedded the catalyst formula in a quantum-encrypted file that would require both her authorization and Tuvok's to access, ensuring that no single authority could control it. She recorded her official log with carefully chosen words. The Void Plague represents not merely a contagion, but a transformative agent of unknown origin. While we have developed protocols to stabilize infected individuals and prevent further outbreaks of uncontrolled mutation, the ethical implications of directed human evolution remain profound and unsettled. It is my recommendation that further research proceed with the utmost caution and with full informed consent of all participants. What she didn't record was her final conversation with the Whisperer before he departed in his modified shuttle. "You've chosen the slower path," he observed as they stood in the transformed biodome, now a riot of impossible colors and shapes. "Deliberate rather than decisive." "I've chosen to preserve choice itself," Alara countered. "Forced evolution isn't evolution at all. It's just another form of extinction. A philosophical distinction that may prove meaningless when the next breach occurs." The Whisperer gestured toward the viewport, where the vast emptiness of space concealed unseen dangers. "The null sphere was merely the first contact point between realities. Others will follow. Then we'll face them as humans, flawed, struggling, but determined to remain ourselves even as we adapt. Some will. Others will seek transcendence willingly." The Whisperer's luminous gaze seemed to see through her. "Including your Dr. Tuvok. Eventually. His current state is merely transitional." Alara felt a pang at the thought. Despite everything, she had come to rely on Tuvok's steady presence, his brilliant mind. That will be his choice to make. "Indeed. And what of you, Captain? When the moment comes to transcend or perish, what will Alara Jo choose?" She had no answer then, and hours later, watching the Whisperer's shuttle disappear into the darkness beyond the blockade. She still didn't. In the biodome, new life continued to emerge, plants that communicated through light patterns, insects with crystalline exoskeletons, flowers that adjusted their chemistry to heal rather than harm. A microcosm of what humanity might become, for better or worse. Tuvok found her there, standing alone among the alien blooms. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he observed. "Neither fully terrestrial nor completely other. A genuine synthesis." "Is that what we're becoming?" Alara asked softly. "A synthesis of human and whatever the void contains? Perhaps. Or perhaps we're simply discovering aspects of ourselves that were always there, waiting for the right catalyst to emerge." He placed a hand on the translucent leaf of a nearby plant, which responded by pulsing with gentle light. "The question isn't whether humanity will change. That's inevitable. The question is whether we can direct that change toward expanding what makes us human rather than diminishing it. And what makes us human? Dr. Tuvok, when our bodies transform, our minds expand, our very DNA rewrites itself, what remains that we can call our humanity?" He considered this thoughtfully, the subtle patterns in his eyes shifting like constellations. Choice, compassion, curiosity, the capacity to question even our own evolution. These aren't functions of our biology, but of our consciousness. Alara wasn't certain she believed him, but she wanted to, had to. If she was to make peace with what her ship, her crew, had become, as the Astra's Grace docked at Arcturus Station, carrying its cargo of survivors and secrets. Alara knew that humanity stood at a crossroads. The mild strains had been conquered, but the true transformation was just beginning. Whether it led to transcendence or extinction would depend on choices made by individuals like herself, those who stood at the boundary between what humanity had been and what it might become. She only hoped they would choose wisely.